Guys, welcome back to the channel. Today's video I'm just gonna talk a little bit about what got me into riding and onto the bike that I'm on. Just taking you along with me on my commute home from work. I could take a little bit different route than normal. Take some back roads, but it's a bit windy today and feel like I'm getting pushed around a good bit, so just gonna take a nice easy route. Still plenty of salt on the ground. I know that makes a lot of y'all cringe right now, but it's a nice 60-degree day and I could not resist. We're expecting 6 to 8 inches of snow over the weekend, so I know it's going to be a little bit before I can get back out on the bike again. So to get onto the topic of today's video, is what got me into riding. Nobody in my family rode or anything, just saw them on TV, would see them when we were out driving around. Really got into American Chopper when that show was out with Paul Sr. and loved all the custom builds they did. Really enjoyed the aesthetic of the choppers. Fast forward to my adult life and my working career, or working part of life. I had several co-workers at the job I'm at now that had bikes. Always intrigued me, but finances were never really there, and it's just one of those things that was out of the cards. Well, over the past year, we decided to start looking for my wife a new vehicle, and I threw it out as a joke. It's like, hey, you know, we get you a new car, I'll hang on to my truck and I'll just get a motorcycle like I've been always wanting. She looked back at me and said, okay, sounds like a good idea to me. So I started digging into bikes. Looked into the MSF course as well, and she ended up surprising me with setting me up for that, and I got signed up in this past August and was able to take the classes. And I've got past the class. I still need to get my actual license, but I do have my permit. But while I was waiting for the class, I really got to digging onto YouTube and looking at what bikes were out there, what were good for beginners, the aesthetic I was looking for, and something that, you know, I could maintain and not have to worry about falling apart on the road on me or anything. Something that was dependable, reliable, and that I could just get out and ride. At first I was looking at a Yamaha Bolt or something in that cc range and size, and got to talk to my wife. She said, well, if you're going to spend what you are on a Yamaha or something like that that's new, why don't you just look and see what a Harley is? So I decided to get on and look, and saw the 883s, the Sportsters. Instantly fell in love with them. I love the look of them, the customizations that you can get into them, take in any direction you want to. And what really sold me on them was Blockhead. Blockhead has some fantastic videos talking about the Iron 883 and how it was his first bike and the direction he was able to take it. Now, granted, his videos were a little old at that point, but it really got me into his channel, and I got to looking into all of his videos and saw the 2 or 3 different Sportster builds that he had done and the different ways you could take it. And I was sold, hook, line, and sinker. So it's coming up about a month before my MSF course, and decided to head up to the dealer and just look around, feel them out. And when I walked in, I saw the Snake Venom 883. Instantly fell in love with it. So I sat down, talked to him about it, got some numbers worked out, and ended up walking out with the bike in my name on that day. I still had to have it delivered. I hadn't taken my MSF course. It never even sat on a motorcycle until that day. And as soon as I got it home, I started getting out and practicing using Blockhead's videos and just putzing around the neighborhood, getting the feel for the friction zone and in some some shifting between 1 and 2, nothing crazy. And I think it took me a whole whopping 3 days of riding around the neighborhood to finally venture out onto the actual roads around me. Now everything around me where I live is 45, 55 mile an hour roads. We don't have a whole lot of 35. I live in the county outside of city limits, so once you get out of our neighborhood, you're on a main not highway, but more of like a country byway, connects a few of the cities. And so I finally got brave enough, ventured out onto that, and after a few short rides, I'd convinced myself I was ready, and even though I shouldn't have, I started riding my bike to work. I have a short, about a 15-20 minute commute depending on what way I take. Not a bad commute at all, but everything's up around 55 mile an hour. Nothing slower other than just our neighborhood streets. Fast forward to August in my MSF course, I decided to go on and ride my bike to the course, but I left it sitting. I used the street 500s that they had at the class, and man, that, for what it is, it's a fun experience. I recommend it to anybody. Through my local dealer, it was $150 for the class, for a 3-day class. The first day, it's just sitting in a classroom, learning the basics. It's basically for anybody who's never sat on a motorcycle at all. It makes it cut and dry for anybody who doesn't know anything about bikes at all. The second day, get started out on the range, and that's what they call the lot that you practice in. And you start with a lot of slow speed stuff, start walking the bike around the parking lot, learning the weight of it, and it really builds a good fundamental base for you. After I completed my MSF course, I found every excuse I could to get out on the bike. Rode it to work, would get out on the weekends, ride it for say an hour or so every day. Anytime I could get away from my wife and kids, just to get the free time. And slowly but surely I kept building up miles under my belt, and to where I am today, where I've got just shy of 4,000 miles on the bike. I'm loving every minute of it. Something that made me a little nervous about going with the 883 at first, when I first started looking at bikes, was that number, that 883. Everybody who I talked to, you know, said stuff like start with a 500. A lot of people start with a 250cc sport bike, and I was expecting this to just be an overwhelming amount of power, even though it's still a low-powered cruiser. But what I didn't realize is the power delivery is a little bit different on a V-twin versus those sport bikes. This thing may have 883 cc's in it, but it's only pushing somewhere between 45 and 55 horsepower and about the same torque number, whereas those smaller cc sport bikes are pushing similar power, maybe a little less, but not a whole lot. So if you're looking at the 883, don't be afraid of it as a starter bike. The power is very manageable, nothing that you can't handle. Just learning your friction zone and where your shift points are, that makes a world of difference. And then to add on to that, it still has plenty of power if you want to get up on the interstate every now and then. It's not designed for that, but it's doable. Riding on the interstate at 75, 80 miles an hour puts you up in the 3,500, 4,000 RPM range, which it's not really the sweet spot for the bike. So you're not going to get the best fuel economy, but you can do it. Something to expect is the wind does push you around a fair bit, but it's something you can manage. For me, these kinds of roads that we're on today, this is the bread and butter of my riding. This is most of it. Eventually I'll branch out and do some more highway riding, some longer trips, or some places a couple hours away that I want to visit and ride. But for now, this bike seems to be suiting my needs. You hear of a lot of people trading up within the first 6 months to a year. For me, I don't see that being the case. First of all, financially, I can't afford a bigger bike, so this is what I got. But to top it off, I love this bike. This thing will suit my needs perfectly for commuting. Getting over 50 miles to the gallon, it beats the hell out of my truck any day and every day. I get about 13 miles to the gallon in it. Well, I hope everybody's enjoyed that little backstory into my riding, and hopefully gives you some insight into the bikes and stuff if you're a new rider out there. Just some things to think about before you get a bike. Honestly, I haven't been on any other bikes other than the Street 500s that Harley has, but for these two bikes, they're both very manageable. I don't know how easy it is to get your hands on a street anymore. They're not on the showrooms. Of course, that's not really a big seller for them, but they are out there if that's what you're comfortable on. I will say the seats on the Street 500 seem a bit more comfortable than this on the 883. Guys, I think that about wraps it up for this video. Y'all ride safe out there, and I'll catch y'all next time.